Hello.
Hi,
Welcome to the Nuthouse.
I'm Rob.
I'm Leanna.
Today, what are we discussing?
DOE.
The Department of Education. Yay.
So
Okay. What about the Department of Education?
it was established in 1979, October of
Mhm.
1979, by Carter.
Carter. Yeah.
And I think it was his last ditch effort to get reelected. At least it seems to be.
Maybe. I mean, it was literally weeks before the election. I don't know.
It was. It was. Um, it seems like it was some
What was the purpose?
it was a it was politically motivated after the civil rights movement. They didn't really have any way to enforce,
Oh, yeah, they were trying to improve
and
equity.
yeah, they didn't really have any way to
Hate that
enforce the
word.
policies they were passing for the civil rights movement.
Hmm.
The what was it called? Um,
They pulled it out of the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare.
yes, but there was a specific um policy that was passed in 1965.
Civil Rights Act.
Yes, the Civil Rights Act, but there was one specific around education that was passed.
Oh, okay. I was like,
Yes, the Civil Rights Act was passed. Yes, but there was one specific that was aside, not Title IX, because Title IX was about um
I don't know. It's about protecting women, right?
yes,
We
but
should probably get back to that. But anyway, go ahead.
yes, there's one specific on education.
Okay, if we don't remember it, it's fine to go forward. Okay.
Okay, yes, but there, yes, it's to enforce around there. It's to ensure equal education for gender, race,
Yeah.
no matter if it's disability,
Yep.
age, all that stuff. But they
Hmm.
weren't able to really enforce it. So the Department of Education was the idea behind it was we can now enforce it and
Yeah.
we can measure if it's being enforced. So
Yeah.
that was how that's where they
That
came.
would be the collecting and disseminating of data. Yeah.
Yes, standardized testing came out of that idea.
That's the setting of national policy. Yeah.
Yep, they came up with the
They administrating federal funding as well
yep,
because Pell Grants and all those things.
yes, the Pell Grants, all that stuff. That's where it all came from.
And another key thing, and I'm going to take a little tangent when I talk about this, consolidating federal education functions.
Yes.
That's what I keep talking about we need to do with election. We have a lot of different election uh, offices that are not consolidated. We need to consolidate them under one branch under or department under CISA. But anyway, that was one of the functions of it.
Yes.
But that was its purpose. Yeah.
Yes. That was the whole purpose of the Department of Education. Um, it didn't go into full effect until
1980.
1980, but it was the act to establish it was done in October of
Right.
1979.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
How's it going?
well,
Did I just bring up my screen?
not so well. Um, a lot of our people have argued that it's been kind of a problem since the very beginning.
All right. Well, I went to Grok, and I actually went to ChatGPT too, but Grok's was more thorough.
Okay.
And I asked the same exact questions. So,
Okay.
Department of Education failed in a lot of ways. Here's the weird thing. Like I asked specifically, talk about the failures. Now later on, I ask about things like, well, no, that's pros and cons, and maybe that's what reset it. I asked questions, and it would give me pros and cons of each question. Why didn't it give me pros of the Department of Education? What are the successes? Why didn't it give me those? I don't know. That's weird. But anyway, so I mean, anyone can read this, but basically, it didn't improve our education outcomes. We're either exactly the same or effectively the same.
Okay.
meaning we could be slightly lower, slightly higher, but overall, our ranking has gone down. Um, that was actually brought up in ChatGPT, which this only touches on.
Okay.
So like we stayed the same basically, or had a slight improvement in math, but our ranking in the world is lower. That's
Okay.
basically this is the big one.
Mhm.
Bureaucracy and administrative overhead. This is one of the reasons a lot of people are talking about let's get rid of the Department of Education, because this is where most of the money goes. All the people, the administrative burden put on. There's 4,000 employees in the Department of Education.
Mhm.
That's a lot.
That is. That
That's a
is.
tremendous amount of employees. Like, I mean, yeah, that's crazy.
Right.
Um, they've never been, one of the reasons it was put in place is to do the, like you said, data statistics and make sure everybody's equitable.
Mhm.
And they've never been able to pull that together in any kind of consistent way. It's never been good. Um, the inadequate evaluation methodologies have persisted since its inception.
Huh?
It's completely inadequate. They have no idea what they're talking about.
Oh no, it's actually made it worse because what's happened is we've gone from an overarching, a pretty well-rounded education where you get, math,
A little bit of
science, a
everything.
little bit
Yeah,
of
you get some
everything. You get
local.
local
You
policies,
get
local
yeah.
procedures. To now you get pretty much only math and science and reading, and you don't get
Shops out.
music's
All the
out,
extraneous stuff. Music's out. Yeah, I remember having music class, shop class. I think I was one of the last
physical
shop
education's been
classes.
cut in a lot of places.
Yeah,
Um, Recess is being cut in a lot of places, which is sad because kids need movement.
yeah. And its purpose, one of the prime purposes, as we talked about, is to fix inequality, and it did it seemed to make almost no change.
Yeah.
So, yeah, not great.
No.
Federal overreach and control. A lot of people think it. What is the federal government doing in education? Why are you telling someone in California in a big city and someone in rural Alaska that they need to educate their kids exactly the same? That's ridiculous.
No, because the people in Alaska are not going to have the same economy. They're not going to have the same needs overall.
They
And
don't even have the same culture.
no, no, we've lived in Alaska, and the culture in
Mm-hmm.
Alaska, it's like living in a different country compared
Yeah.
to living in and I don't even think someone in DC could comprehend that. Most of the country can't comprehend that. Living in Alaska is a completely different experience than living in almost any state in
Like
the
you could
union.
go from Boston to New York to LA, even to Houston. Those are fairly similar environments
Yes,
because they're big cities, right?
right.
That's where most of the populace lives. I get that.
Yeah,
But like even suburbs is significantly different, and several suburbs have cultural differences.
right.
Even several cities have cultural. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But then like how can one person understand like it's not a one size fits all. Is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Can't do that.
I
Yeah.
get what you're saying.
We got student loan management problems. Recent attempts for loan forgiveness have faced legal setbacks. That's not their fault. That's
One of
because
the
they do
problems
it
with the
that way.
student loans is there's lots of problems with the student loans. Never mind one. It's
Go
just
ahead.
you can't get the student loans forgiven in a bankruptcy. You are once you sign on those student loans, they're
You
there for
signed up for life. Yeah.
you sign up for life. They don't explain that to a lot of the kids, and they just think
Oh, that's something missing from schools. Is they don't explain finances. They don't explain how taxes work.
yeah,
They don't explain the importance of investing to your retirement. There's so many things they don't explain.
yes,
Just financially, that is ridiculous.
yeah. And then you have the student loans also, the interest rates on them are like somebody showed that they had paid on their student loan.
Oh, if they pay the minimum, yeah. It'll take them like 40 years or something, 50 years to pay off a student loan
Yeah,
by paying the minimum. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
yes. And a lot of people don't understand that if they're not paying on them while they're even while they're in school with the
Here's
unsubsidized.
another thing. Like, the federal government goes, we're going to cover X amount on a student loan. And they raise that every year. And colleges go, oh, well, that means you can pay more because the federal government will give you more.
Yeah.
And that's where most of the exorbitant pricing of colleges comes from. I don't know why people don't see that. I mean, there's a lot of people that do. It's not my idea.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people that just, no, we need federal backed loans because of that. You didn't have federal backed loans until like 2008, 2010, I think, somewhere around there.
It was
Is when
it was early 2000s.
no, not. I'm sorry, not federal backed loans, but I mean like only federal backed loans. I think it is. The federal government took over college loans in 2008 or 2010. I think it is.
Yeah.
I remember seeing a congressional hearing on that,
Yeah, we'll have to look at that.
and they got asked by I think it was AOC, um, what are you doing about these loans? You know, this and that. Why aren't you doing this or that? And they're like, we don't have any control over it. Not since you guys took it away in 2011 or whatever it was. It might have been 2001. I don't know. But yeah, they were asking, I think, banks. It was hilarious. Anywho, we also have curriculum, which we kind of touched on, and policy failures like Common Core. That's not good.
Common Core, the math and the reading is a problem because they went from phonics reading, phonetical reading, which a lot of people
Yep.
that are over 40 learn phonetically.
Yeah.
If you're lucky and you're under 40, I'm on the edge of going to be 40 very soon. You learned to read phonetically. I'd say probably around 30, 38, whatever, around that area. You learn phonetically how to read. But or somewhere around I'd say the mid 90s, we started switching to sight words to teach children to read.
Yeah.
And sight words is here, memorize these 10 words. Now memorize these 10 words. Now memorize these 10 words. And eventually the kids start catching on and we start adding more words for them to memorize. And the kids are guessing to read. And we expect them to start adding more words to their vocabulary based on context and clues and not phonetics. So it is a jump in the starting to read. So they look like they're reading at 4 and 5 and maybe even 3.
Mm-hmm.
But long term, the skill of reading is shortened because
Comprehension.
the comprehension on reading it's truncated because the ability to bring in new words is actually harder for them because you've taught them to memorize the words, like instead of phonetically to sound out the word. So like older parents they would send home the homework and they'd be like, here, teach them to read. And then you're thinking, okay, well, sound out the words because that's how you were taught in
Yeah.
in elementary school. And your kid's sitting there going, I don't know what that means. And at school, they're being taught, no, memorize this word.
It's crazy.
And the reason why they're being taught to memorize the words is so that they can get through the test faster.
Yeah.
And then you
Let's
have
not talk about the math.
Oh yes, the Common Core math too. It's hard because it makes it so that math is subjective. And what I mean
I saw somebody get it wrong when it was I think it was 4 + 4 = 8, and they wanted them to break it down into, I don't know, maybe it was subtraction.
No,
it was like
because multiplication, we're teaching them because with Common Core math, we're teaching them tricks to get to the multiplication levels.
Yeah.
So it's 4 + 4 + 4, or 3 + 3 + 3 + 3.
Yeah, no. I was thinking of subtraction. It was actually 14 - 8 = 6, or 14 - 6 = 8, and you can't do that. You have to turn it into tens, and then you have a 10 and a 6, and 10 - 6 is 4, and then you have to add 2. And I'm like, just know that 14, like, eventually get to the point where you just know.
Yeah.
14 - 6 is 8, and 14 - 8 is 6. You just know.
Yes.
Like, because you practice.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yes. The reason why I shouldn't say the old way of doing math, because most of the world does math the way
That way.
the way we've learned to do math and science and reading. The way older millennials and X and boomers were taught is the way most of the world still does things. But the reason why they decided to switch to Common Core is because kids weren't doing fast enough for the standardized testing, so they were failing the test. It's not that they didn't know the things, it's that they couldn't move fast enough to get through an hour test. And so they weren't scoring high enough on the test. And so they were trying to come up with tricks to get the kid to go faster through the test. And if you look at
they're basically teaching the test is all they're
yes,
concerned with.
yeah,
Because when you make the measure just test scores, then that's all they're going to focus on, and that's the problem with the way they measure data.
when you put people's money on the line, which is what it is, at the end of the day, it's money.
They're going to do what they need to do to get as much money as they can.
Yes, and these kids, I'm sure that a lot of the teachers love the kids, want them to learn, but at the end of the day, they still got to feed their families. So they got to figure out a way to get as many kids to go as fast as they can.
I don't know that it's necessarily the teachers.
Yeah.
As much as the administrators. Like that's they're in charge of where the money comes from. They know the intricacies. Whereas the teacher wants them to learn, but when it comes down from on high, this is how you do it. That's how you have to do it. You don't have a choice.
Right.
Which I guess is part of the policy failures we talked about. And then the public perception and calls for abolition is public perception is exactly what we talked about. Like we're literally, it doesn't work. It's not working. Whatever we're doing is not working. And everyone's like, well, why would you abolish it? You're going to lose all these things. Why don't we try to not lose all those things? Like get rid of the administrative state of the Department of Education, and that gives you your local control where, what are we talking about? Where different areas have different priorities and what they want to teach their kids. Because there's different cultural phenomena that are important, and so pull in what's good for you.
The problem with something like the Department of Education or a federal organization for education is once you remove yourself too much from the local populace, is you no longer see the people as people. You see them as numbers.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's all they are, is numbers.
And it's not necessarily that somebody's like got malice behind them. It's just that's reality. It's no longer people you're looking at. It's a thought experiment. You're not looking at it in its reality. When you are in a local level, even at state level, you can get it to where it's still numbers. It's hard to still do even at a state level sometimes, depending on how big your state is. But when you're more localized,
students,
when you're more localized, it's easier because you're seeing the people's faces. You're seeing them every day, or even once a month, or as you're seeing them. You're in their space. You know that you're going to be moving amongst them. So it makes it easier to see what's needed. It makes it easier to, just makes it more intuitive about what has to be done. And and it's you have more skin in the game. You're more invested in what's
because they're your students.
Yeah.
If they would just like split up the funding based on these are the students you have, boom, this is where it goes.
Yeah.
That would be one way to do it. And I'm not saying all the funding, because there's still other things you got to do, but reducing the bureaucracy would literally, like, of those 4,000 employees of the Department of Education, how many of them are just pencil pushers?
A lot.
How many of them are necessary and have a certain level of expertise that might be needed to process Pell Grants, for instance? Or
probably not very many.
Yeah, I would imagine. You might
could probably
90% of 4,000, leave 400 or 500 employees.
You could probably reduce that down a lot, and then probably just make it into a like I don't know, like a skeleton crew, and
Yeah, that's what I was saying. If you cut out like 90%, you have, or 88 or whatever, you have 400 or 500 employees.
yeah,
Whereas you can transfer, we're getting kind of ahead of ourselves because there's lots of cons as well, but we're kind of talking about how to address those already. But like, for instance, certain funds, we talked about the grants and things like could be moved to the Department of the Treasury, for instance, and you can move the experts, the leaders, the high performers of those positions to the Department of Treasury to help the transition
Mhm.
and make sure that people now, I mean, they're still managing money, are doing it properly based on educational whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
Just processing paperwork. It's not rocket science.
right,
Like,
get that,
so you can move like certain managerial or leadership positions over there to help address that.
right,
You might even be able to move some employees over who are doing that. Like I said, if you keep like 400, 500 employees,
right,
you could still do most of the stuff, if not all of the stuff. And a lot of it would move down to the states, like you said. There's the student loans and financial aid, data and research. Yeah, okay, they collect it, but so does Health and Human Services. It
yeah,
used to be under Health and Human Services. That aspect of it could be moved back,
right,
things like that. Um, they're worried about increased inequality, except we've shown that there was no change in inequality
yeah.
education since its inception. So that's not a con. That's a worry. Sure, let's make sure it doesn't happen, but it's not very good.
We haven't
Um,
really we haven't really bridged that gap. There has to be a different solution because we haven't fixed inequalities or disparities amongst any racial problems or anything like that by having the DOA to begin with. So that
yeah,
obviously this isn't the solution.
this isn't the solution. Why would we keep wasting?
Yes.
I don't remember how much money. I looked it up the other day. Every year, millions of dollars every year on administrative stuff that's not working.
Yes. And we've increased I thought I saw we increased in administration that we've gone from like like I think it was they said we increased administration by like 200% in schools. They went from roles that didn't exist in 2000.
Oh yeah, like DEI and stuff like that didn't exist. Yeah, there's
Yeah,
a whole bunch of roles like that.
yeah, there's like admin roles at schools that never existed that exist now. Like
Yeah,
there's uh curriculum consultation roles that are now hired that we don't necessarily need. And there's just admins that sit in the office waiting to be called in case a student needs to be removed. They don't like there's so much bureaucracy now just for that.
yeah, yeah. This is what I was talking about: moving stuff, keeping standards, and moving stuff around.
Yep.
Um, one of the challenges it does mention up here is that like you have to worry about the legality of it. Like I think Congress passed a law that put the DOE like that administered it. They said this is how the DOE will work after he said let's do it. I think that's what happened, or it's part of the law that he approved. I don't remember.
Yeah.
So there's congressional stuff around doing anything with an agency that has to be addressed as well.
Gotcha.
But now we have, accountability and oversight, educational data. We talked about all this, like how it could be done. There's options. It's not,
Right.
you can't be inflexible. I guess that's part of the problem.
Right.
I don't know. There's a lot here, and I think we've made our point.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on anything else?
Um I was thinking we were going to talk about the big flubs that we've already done, but we've already talked about how the standardized testing and everything.
Yeah, we touched on most of the big flubs. Like there was no improvement.
Yeah.
Like in our standards, we're in this we're in the same we have the same level of reading and math skills, or slightly above or slightly below what it was before. And yet our rankings dropped because everyone else is getting better
Yes.
and we're stagnating, but spending way more money.
Yeah.
I did ask any other recommendations to make this work better, while still cutting much of the overhead of the DOE.
Okay.
And it gave some advice like automation and digitization, which absolutely. automate as much of it as you can. Loan processing, scholarship distribution, application handling. Absolutely. Centralized common functions, enhance interagency collaboration. Like there's a lot you can do to update what is staying in the Department of Education or moving to other branches, I don't know. What did you find it? Did you find it?
Found it, but it's I'll share it on a different thing.
I'm gonna stop sharing.
Yeah, I'll just don't worry about it. I was still in an argument with
Stop going on social media.
no, it was on Brock was still arguing with me about it.
Oh yeah, he's still educating Grok, I guess.
Yeah, it was trying to say no, that's not how that statistic
Oh,
reads.
you're talking about literacy stuff. Yeah, you looked that stuff up. Why don't you go ahead and talk about it?
Well, it was trying to say that it doesn't read that way, but it does.
Read what way? Nobody knows what you're talking about.
Oh, okay.
Do you want to share?
Yeah. So in 20
What were you doing? What was the
I was looking up literacy rates of the 1960s versus literacy rates of today.
Okay.
And the 19
And of course it pointed to COVID
Yes,
immediately.
And I said COVID doesn't explain the literacy rates because I was asking for 8th grade and above,
Right.
14 and up, because the census for literacy rates in the 60s, which is what is recorded on the census, is 14 and up.
Okay.
Because that's the literacy rates we've been keeping in the country is 14 and up.
So you want to compare apples to apples.
Right.
Right.
And they said, well, we didn't do standardized testing. I said, it doesn't matter that we didn't do standardized testing. The census asked anyone 14 and older, have you gone to high school? What did you complete in high school? Can you read and write? And are you proficient? And these are the questions that were on the census in the 60s. So we should be able to know who could read and write. And all I want to know is who could read and write and what's the percentage. And it doesn't matter because if you're 14 and over, you should have been able to read when COVID happened because you would not have been in learning the age group to learn to read when COVID hit in 2020. And the argument on Grok was that, well, no, you would have been learning to read. And I said, while 3rd grade, it can be argued that that's a fundamental core grade level for learning to read. 4th, 5th, and 6th is not. And 4 years ago, an 8th grader would have been at a minimum in 4th grade. Yeah. And 14 years old, you would have been a minimum of 4th grade 4 years ago. So you would have been taught to think critically and to research. You would have been moving on to that step. In
those groups instead of reading. Yeah.
Yes. So you should have been able to do the basic minimum of reading and writing. So that's all I want to know is, can you do the basics of reading and writing? And Grok still didn't answer the question. So I had to go to ChatGPT for, can they read and write?
It's not good.
No, it's not, because Grok refused to answer the question. It kept blaming COVID and it kept coming up with other reasons why I couldn't answer the question. So there are...
So one of the things I've done when faced with that, because ChatGPT used to have that problem as well sometimes. And what I would do is since you're comparing the 60s to now, it might be okay to compare the 60s to 2019. I've done that.
Yeah.
Because, it might be a little bit off, but it's close enough.
Yeah. I've also compared it to 2019, and it gave me the answers in 2019. It tried to do that on ChatGPT for COVID, and I said, just give me 2019 then. And then it turned around and said, all right, I can give you numbers.
And what are the numbers?
75, scrolling back up. As far as literacy, Um,
And it's literacy versus literacy, right? Not literacy versus
yeah,
illiteracy.
not yeah.
Okay. Because it can do that too. It can switch the stats.
Yes, it will also switch the stats and it'll tell you, oh, these people were that it will have a 2.2% of illiterate people in the US and you'll be reading it thinking and then it will say, but we'll have this rate of literacy. And you're thinking,
And one of the things you can do, and I don't know if you can do this on Grok yet, but one of the things you can do on ChatGPT is you can set a list of rules.
yeah,
And you can tell it how you want things, how you want it to answer things, what kind of approach you want it to take,
okay,
um, and how to keep things consistent. I have a large list of rules based on because I use this for any analysis I do.
okay,
Um, so yeah, that's something to consider. I can help you go over that.
okay,
It'll help get better, more consistent answers.
okay.
And hopefully Grok either has that or will have that soon. I just started using Grok, so I'm not really sure yet.
Yeah,
Okay. So what was the numbers? I'm sorry, I interrupted you talking about rules and stuff.
you're fine. I was scrolling down. National education, grade 4, grade, yeah. According to ChatGPT, once I finally got it to give me a number, it's saying that only about 30% of students are proficient at reading in eighth grade today.
Holy
37%
crap.
are proficient in 12th grade today, meaning they can read
That's at their level.
proficiently. Like when we say for the test, usually for the test, it's usually around about an eighth grade level. Proficiently, it's eighth grade level. Means you can.
What year in 1960 did you do?
In 1960, they usually just say, "Can you read?" Which is usually about an eighth
No, no,
grade
no. I
level.
meant like, did you use 1960 explicitly? Or did you say the 1960s? Or did you say like
I
1965?
said
Or
the 1960s. And the 1960s for the census usually is about an eighth grade level for what they compare for most people on the census when they ask you, "Can you read?" That's usually what they're talking about is an eighth grade level.
okay. Well, I'm asking Grok right now, and I'm asking it about both. So in just along the lines of what you said, it said 34% of eighth graders are proficient in reading or were in 2019, and 37% of 12th graders were at or above proficient level. That's insanely low.
Yes. And the thing that it said, well, our standards have changed in what proficient means. And the thing is though, if you can read or write,
Right. If you're proficient in accordance with that time of like as we as a species learn more about the universe, we teach more to our kids in school. So that applies to reading as well. You're going to become more proficient with things over time as a species.
but if you read the tests from the 60s, they are harder to read than the tests they give us to read today.
Okay, never mind. I'm a liar. Um, no, I was just thinking like in a lot of
That's just my
media.
opinion. I mean, I could just be
I
being a
don't know
jerk.
if they were harder. I'm just saying like in
I don't know.
I'm
I
just
saw
thinking
a
like
sample
as
somebody
technology
uploaded.
improves, like
This is just
we teach more things like advanced science ideas.
I know. We do. We
That's
do.
what I was saying.
That's
So
true. That's true. I'm just saying, like, I saw a sample somebody uploaded from the like, some, and this could be pure bogus or whatever, but I saw somebody uploaded a sample from the 60s from that was on their tests from when they were a kid, and they could purely be, lying. Who knows? But they were like, "Oh, this is a sample from 1965 that was on my eighth grade test," and I was like, "Man, I don't know a lot of people that could pass that today." And they could purely be lying. It could be completely made up. I didn't see a fact check on it. I didn't really look it up. I didn't care. But it looked harder than a lot of the things people try to pass today. What do I know?
yeah,
But all I'm saying is we go from a 90% of adults, you know, reading to
So it tells me that
37% of 12th graders are proficient in reading. That bothers me
yeah,
because that was on the census. That said on the census, you know.
I'm not getting an answer, so I can't for 1960s. It's doing a lot of talk around.
Yeah.
I'm not getting a good answer.
Yeah. Because yeah. It says 75% of 14 to 17-year-olds were enrolled in high school and 90% of adults could read. And then it goes down and I scroll down and it said 37% of 12th graders were proficient on the test. For what year was that? That was that test. Oh, that was 2022. And that was,
So I looked up the average literacy proficiency in Europe.
oh no, that was 2019. Sorry, I read that wrong. That was 2019.
Right.
And that was in the National
Hold on.
Center for Education Statistics.
Hold on. I understand that. And I looked up the average literacy proficiency in Europe. Okay. In 2019.
Hello?
And it gave me from globaleconomy.com for 2019, an average adult literacy rate for European countries was 98.99%.
Okay.
Based on 15 countries' data. The highest literacy was in the Ukraine at 100%, and the lowest was in Malta at 94%.
Okay.
Now, I didn't see anything specifically for 14-year-olds. That's a little harder to find. They don't measure things the same at the same time and things like that.
Okay.
They have 15-year-olds. Then they have digital literacy. Let me do something else. Let me try. This is going to be bad. What is the American literacy rate in 2019? It ain't going to be 94%. No way. Oh, that's low. Okay. When considering those who can read and write at a basic level 1, so or above, was 95%. What is level 1? I don't know what that means. Meaning they could not successfully determine the meaning of sentences.
Oh.
Read relatively short texts to locate a single piece of information or complete simple forms.
Ooh.
Is 4.1%. But that's not the same as reading comprehension. That's like the minimum.
Yeah. That was 4%, you said?
4.1, yeah.
Okay, 4.1% is better than 30%. Where was that? Is that the US?
That was the US, yeah.
Okay.
But that means 4.1% can't take a sentence and pull any information out of it. They can't read short words or short sentences.
But that could be educational, what do you call it? That could be someone with a disability.
Yeah, 4.1%. I mean, that could be somebody, just people with low IQ. Like,
yeah, that's not necessarily.
There's a lot of things that could tell. Yeah, there's a lot of things that could tell.
Yeah, you can't necessarily tell something from that kind of a statistic. So that's not necessarily something bad. But seeing 30.
That's what they use, that 4.1%. But I don't think that's the same metric that Europe is using. I'm pretty sure. Like, because above that does not mean you are proficient.
Yeah. No, I know. Yeah, the thing on the
Here you go. About 54% of adults in the U.S. read below a 6th grade level, according to some sources. In Europe, while general literacy rates are high, functional literacy, that's what we're talking about here, varies. So functional, let's see. The percentage of adults with low literacy skills, below level 2, in various European countries ranges from about 15 to 25%. What is level 2? Why don't you compare things the same freaking way? All right, forget it. We're just going in circles trying to find information, and AI doesn't know how to present information as apples to apples. It gives me apples to
Well, I pulled up the
coconuts.
article on that it had pulled from for the net for that said 37%.
Uh-huh.
And this is on the national what do you call it? National Center for Education Statistics, right? And this is on their annual report from 2022. This was updated May 2023.
Okay.
And they're supposed to update it.
Just give me the juice.
Okay.
You just give me the squeeze. Give me the juice.
Okay. Excuse me. So
No.
yeah, it shows
Yeah, you're going through an article. Not as easy as going through data.
it's a figure. I got to their first figure, achievement levels. Figure 1, percentage distribution of 4th, 8th, and 12th grade students by the National Assessment Education Progress. Okay.
Okay.
It compares 1992 all the way to 2022.
Okay.
And yeah, it shows 37% below basic reading level standards. And 24% were proficient. And what? It's a stacked bar. Why didn't you do a stacked bar? Can you give me a table? Thank you. All right, yeah. So yeah, they said about 37% of the US kids in 12th grade are at or below basic reading level standards in 12th grade in 2022.
Okay. I got it to give me better information. I asked about level 2 in the US in 2019, and it says 21% of adults are at or below level 2
But it
in the
doesn't.
United States.
What are the basic standards?
Yeah, it's going to be crazy.
That's what I want to know is what are the basic standards of today? Because the basic standards change as we go. That was the question that was the hard time that I was trying to find is what are the basic standards? That's what I was trying to get to define what are our basic standards if they.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we showed what we're going to show.
Yeah.
So what do we get out of this? Department of Education is crap. Doesn't know what it's doing. It needs to be dropped or replaced.
Dropped or replaced or yeah. The experiment has run its course.
Capacity.
We've run a lot of money into the ground. And at this
to be
point,
fair, I think we did that with our health too. We spend more on our health than anybody else, and our health outcomes aren't good either.
Yeah. At this point, I think the states need to be running their own education.
I agree.
The federal government wastes a lot of money.
You know me, I worked for the federal government for a while. I don't have a lot of good things to say about the federal government. It's very wasteful.
That's how I
There's
feel.
a lot of ego involved. There's a lot of I can't lose my budget. I have to spend it on crap, whatever it is. Like there's so many wasteful things.
And
Go ahead.
I just feel like I understand that a lot of people have a hard time educating their own kids. I have no judgment. Personally, I think the government does a bad job at whatever it tries to do, so that's why I homeschool my own kids. But like I understand if you want to utilize the government to educate your kids, the system needs a whole new revamp. I think if it goes back to the states, it'll be better.
Yeah, I just remembered didn't the I asked, did the DOE fail its audit 2 years in a row? And it came back and said, no, it did not fail its audit for 2 years in a row. It failed its audit for third consecutive year. Here's your sources. What?
What?
Okay.
Oh, that's funny. That's hilarious.
I have to teach it.
Yeah, that's funny. So yeah, that's basically what I got from that is
Anyway, sorry, I'm another distraction. We should call it.
okay. All right. That's the end.
Thank you for joining and the fascinating conversation.
Yeah. See you guys next time. All right.
Bye for now.
Bye.